All right. All right, guys. All right. It was supposed to show it at the beginning, but it didn't. So I won't click on it no more. I don't want it to show it again. Anyways, so how is everyone? This is a pre recording. I told you all I would make sure to put that in from now on. Now, what I want to read to you guys is it's a little, actually, it's an explanation kind of about magic and how our soul is captured through magic or through witchcraft without our knowledge. Like them, the news putting you in a fear based frequency or mindset is witchcraft. Some of the wording that is used is witchcraft. Like if some of the wordings that's used in our news is witchcraft. Ideology is witchcraft. So the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because I told you guys I was going to teach you how spiritually or through spiritual beliefs or religious beliefs that we have been enslaved and imprisoned. And the thing is that if I can teach you this stuff, but also teach you how you're trapped in these negative time loops and cycles. And what I mean by that is it could be reoccurring money issues, reoccurring relationship issues, reoccurring employment issues, reoccurring family issues, you name it. Some of these cycles we get into can be broken based upon the positioning of the planets and how they are in relation to your chart and you. Okay. And that's why I want to teach you guys the spiritual side of it so that you can learn how to see these soul traps yourself and get yourself out of them. Okay. Now, going to go. Now, here's the other cool thing. I am not the only one talking about this. Everyone in my field is talking about this. This is something that is well known. So if anybody's new to any of this, just come into it with an open mind. That's all I ask. Okay. Now, I get a lot. I want to show you the chart. I get a lot of information from the ascension glossary. Okay. Now, this is an image of 5D Earth. 5D Earth is actually a frequency dimension. What that actually means is we bring the astral mind, the collective mind, we bring our soul into the body. We start living as if we are a soul with a body, not a body with a soul. Okay. And that is actually your connection to source. So you bring all that in now. And what this explains is density 2, human to fifth dimensional Earth. Okay. And this image is showing you the throat chakra is blue. It's the archetypical mind, etheric template body, absolute ascension timeline, and speak soul plane Palladian. It also talks about the celestial mind matrix, indigo family, perfect idea, inner vision, clarity, and that's basically your chakras. The third eye is sixth density. The fifth density is your throat, which is speaking your truth. The fourth density is your heart chakra. And so basically, it becomes a new earth or a new way of living. When you shift your frequency, you start drawing in people of the same frequency. You start drawing in situations and ideas of that frequency. And so your life version or um, your surroundings then become different than someone else. They're going to be experiencing things you are not because you've shifted dimensions or uh, densities. So that's what that picture's about. Let's take it back to soul binding. Soul binding or energetic bonds are negative energy cords or attachments that are used in a classification of spellcasting that are intended to hold back progress of another person or to suppress the consciousness of another into fear patterns. So the more that you live in fear of certain things, which they want you to, the further from Christ or God that you become. And every unhealed um, bind, any unhealed trauma creates a negative frequency that you are holding on to. If you want to put it in religious terms, that's demons. Okay. And in order to suppress someone and keep them in the fear patterns, they don't have time to heal from one trauma to the next. That's why the news likes to bombard you with negative stuff every day, something new to keep you traumatized. See? However, a person need not be a magician to cast bindings. These are energetic hexes that can be transmitted through sending a negative energy or oppression, hatred, or curse. I wish, like for example, chili. That was a curse. That was a hex. That was spell binding. You don't do that. Okay. Moloch is a soul binding entity and energetic container used in satanic rituals. Many times, Moloch is used in satanic rituals to collect and dispense human beings' vital energies to hierarchies of satanic spirits. So that's why I was saying if you want to take it into spiritual warfare or biblical meaning, this would be the war of good and evil that we are going through right now. So it's dark. They want a person to be of high risk of soul binding that has mental fragmentation or a lot of dark things happen in their life. See, that's soul possession. To own someone's thoughts is to own someone's soul. Okay. Now, the astral plane is the fourth dimension and is referred to as astral plane or astral dimension of the soul matrix. So, our soul actually comprises of the body, the structural physical body, the soul, and the consciousness, the seat of the consciousness. Consciousness. That's why they say when you activate the heart chakra, the throat, and the crown, you create the triad. You collapse the triad, actually, and you open your Godhead to communicate with God. Now, what can happen in this trauma is that the trauma wounds affects an extra dimensional entity or negative discarnate that is vibrating at a particular level at whatever the trauma wound is. So that is true. They do vibrate at whatever the trauma wound is. Now, if you guys remember me saying, one of the most amazing things about my shared death experience was that the moment that I realized he was right there, that my body popped out, I was vibrating at such a high frequency that I had never felt anything like that before. He was vibrating at a very high frequency, but he had to lower his frequency to match my higher frequency that I had worked on. I got that frequency high when the angels stepped in and said, "Hey, you do this meditation 3 times a day, and you will be able to help him cross over to God." And so that's what I done. But the frequency, that's the thing, the frequency. We are frequency. He was frequency. God is frequency. If they damage your frequency, you won't be able to vibrate where you're supposed to vibrate at the time you're supposed to vibrate to get to God at that frequency. It is an all pure loving frequency. That's why we aren't supposed to judge. We shouldn't be judging anybody for anything. Okay, so what happens is the trauma wounds attracts the extra dimensional entity or negative discarnate that they are vibrating at that level, and the trauma wound is wherever the trauma wound is. So, say there is a traumatic psycho-spiritual event where someone was a child victim of abuse, or at some point in their life the person underwent some experience of abuse. So if that abuse energy is not forgiven, cleared, or moved through the body, the person probably splintered off and disassociated from that trauma timeline. And a cording or astral binding was now created that connects it to that timeline or event. I can't tell you how many times I've seen someone as a child that has gone through the abuse or the emotional and spiritual development is stunned at the aging, and the aging process stops at the time of the trauma. Even as their biological body ages, their emotional and spiritual body does not get stopped or frozen in time. That person who suffered the trauma may actually have the emotional development of an 8-year-old or a 12-year-old in particular issue because they never healed the inner child from the abuse they suffered from that particular timeline. Now, when it's read out that way, it makes so much more sense. They traumatize us, but also why we should be healing those traumas when they happen. That's why the phrase come out that's feel it, heal it, and let it go. When you carry your traumas, you are creating cancers and diseases in your body. But if you forgive those traumas, you break the cycle of that event so you never have to go through it again. Plus, you raise your frequency and your consciousness raises and you heal yourself. And so you don't have to worry about, like, if another trauma comes, you're not double or triple traumatized because you've already healed the one. So, spell casting soul binds. Now, it's going to repeat some of the other stuff like soul bindings or energetic binds are negative energy cords or attachments that are used in a classification of spell casting that are intended to hold back progress of another person or to suppress the consciousness of another into fear patterns that enslave them into repeating time cycles. These many organizational structures on the astral plane were designed to achieve multiple layers of soul bindings through many different insertions or false deceptive ideologies. One prime example of these enslavement agendas behind the organized religions, such as Mormonism and the Church of Rome. The extensive architecture of the Vatican necropolis was sprawling upon the astral plane, in which soul harvesting in many dimensional doorways from the phantom pockets were being accessed from demonic portaling. According to SRA blood rituals, the typhoon tunnels and soul bindings at particular dem- de- demographic locations. Now, so if a negative entity has a chance to get through and somebody else is stuck in a trap and they allow that negative entity and so on, wouldn't that just grow it to where it's easier for more of them to come through? That makes sense to me. That would be opening a portal. So, however, a person need not be a black magician to cast binds. These are energetic hexes that can be transmitted through sending a negative energy of oppression. So, when you put that negative hate behind your speech, I can't, blah, 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 you've put that out there and it attaches to that person. We can see the younger generations being taught to hate anyone that opposes their dogmatic ideologies, which are implanted thought forms being hooked into these astral reality organizations. What can happen is the trauma wound attracts an extra dimensional entity or negative discarnate from one of these astral organization hierarchies that is vibrating at a particular level that is a match to whatever that trauma wound is and can be exploited inside of an individual. So let's say there is a traumatic psycho spiritual event where someone has a child victim of abuse, and at some point in their life, the person underwent some experience of abuse, and that abuse is not healed through forgiveness and then cleared and moved out through the body. It creates vulnerability to be used as a backdoor. The person probably splintered soul parts and disassociated from that timeline. These sneaky black magicians can create cording and soul binding that connects into the original timeline. The soul binding for loose harvesting between astral plane structures and physical plane structures are being addressed during this phase, as many are undergoing painful revisits of previous traumatic memories. It has been common that black magicians can manipulate, tweak, or run energy into these cores and bindings from the astral plane in order to exploit that person's trauma on this timeline. Obviously, most people have no idea this dark manipulation is coming from some outer force influencing them without their consent or awareness. Further, the person could be easily triggered into painful memories of and visions of who they believe is a bad guy or oppressor. But in actuality, the negative emotions and pain are being associated to some situation on the matter plane that is totally unrelated to the original source or trauma. This is the form of dark force emotions or manipulation that's uses astral bindings to generate trauma-based projections on the matter plane, in which the traumatized individual will assign blame to unrelated individuals who can see in their environment and then make them cause of their pain. This is one of the sophisticated ways these astral entities can hijack people's thoughts, behaviors, and actions by exploiting their unhealed trauma. So, through unhealed traumas, that's how come negative demonic entities can get to you. Sexual abuse and misery. So I believe that people that have been abused sexually or raped also have traumatic binding, right? And can be easily swayed towards the negative. Now, I think what I'm going to do on my next video, I'm going to go ahead and get ready and close this one out. So I think what I'm going to do on my next video is talk about the chakras and some of the energetic planes that it's on. So that way you guys will be more acquainted to that when we do Tarot Tuesday tomorrow evening. So my throat's out. I've been sick, guys. I'm going to go hop off here, but I hope you guys have a lovely evening. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you tomorrow on a live stream. Now, I will really be there live. You guys have a good night.